Oh, I think. Good morning, everybody. This would be like update 3. It's whatever date I put on this. That's what it is. This will be. I'm doing a teaching video for everybody. Still got to work on that. It's my room in the back. Oh, I want to just kind of talk a little bit and kind of share some things along the lines of the other two. And things that, I don't know if they're just people that have been friends of mine might want to follow certain things. This house here where I live, in 1992, we moved from Kingsville to Corpus. And we didn't really shop because we needed a 4-bedroom house. And we used to work with a realtor from Coldwell Bankers. And there was only one that was on the multiple listings that was actually for sale. That was a 4-bedroom in the whole city at that time. That week we were looking that month. And this was it. But when I looked at it, I knew I used to do a little bit of real estate stuff. And I knew the realtor lady had not looked at it yet because it just came on the market. And then when she's seen it, sometimes what realtors will do, those of you that are realtors know this, I'm not, but you might see a house on the market and not have looked at it, and they might list it for a certain price. And then if you look at that house and think, oh, it might have some damage, but they list it, they're going to maybe list it a little lower, or it's worth, you might get it. Sometimes, like used car things, if somebody comes in and it's a trade-in and it's a real good trade-in, that trade-in car will never make it to the lot because somebody at the dealership's going to buy that car. And when I went and bought my Dodge truck years ago, I drove up in my classic 1966 Mustang shopping for trucks. Right away, there was a bunch of guys, oh, you're going to go ahead and trade that old Mustang in? I said, no, it's worth more than the truck I'm buying. It's antique. So this house, it wasn't that great of a deal, but it was probably worth $75,000 at the time. It's a 1,500 square foot house that I live in, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. But I think they listed it for like 69, or they listed it a little lower, and I offered 62. So I and the realtor, I remember the first time we looked at it, they never called me back. I think it was low enough where maybe an investor that they knew would have bought the house and rented it. And the rent here, you could rent it for maybe $1,700 a month, this house. For Texas, Corpus Christi, that's good. For New Jersey, you might say that's low, John, but no, that's about it. But when I bought this house, I think it was $62,000. We just moved, and when you buy property, you got principal interest. But in 2008, I retired, and it was not a medical thing, or it could have been, but I didn't do that. But back at the fire department, many years before I retired, we went and picked up a football player at A&I University campus. It's now A&M. And he was injured on a game, and I'll never forget, we picked up this football player, it might have been, 90-something. And my back, my friend didn't lift or put down at the same time, and he was a big guy. And when you pick up a lot of heavy people on stretchers, that's how you get a lot of back injuries. And my back went out, and it just, popped a disc, whatever. But I told my friend Renee when I got in the ambulance, I kind of fell down. I said, man, you're going to have to leave me at the hospital, at least to get checked. But it wasn't, it was like a disc that just came out, popped or whatever, and your whole back went down. But that was the beginning of just, I got some back problems, I could see. But I never did big, like a lot of guys at the firehouse do months and months of injury leave, and they like that. I did only a few weeks. My whole 25 years, I only did a few weeks of what you call workman's comp. because it threw my schedule off, and I was very active doing outreach and all. So I never liked that. I had guys that wouldn't mind doing that. But over time it got bad. In the last year at the fire department, it just got so bad that it caused nerve damage in my leg. And it was that bad where I went to the ER once in 2007. I was going to go to work and I was in so much pain. And my right leg was totally numb. And it's still numb to this day, not completely. And I had nerve damage to the right leg where every now and then, and it happened a few weeks ago at Don's Pier, but every now and then, it's not cramps, but the leg, there's a name for this injury, and I forget the name. But at the time, when I went to the ER, they shot me right in the back with an injection of the high power painkiller, and it didn't do anything. But eventually I had to start okay, we're going to look at your back, you got to go, and that process. And I already had 25 years at the firehouse. But they sent me also to the back person. Then I went to a certain check they do just to see if you actually have that nerve damage thing. And I had it. And where your right leg is still numb, not completely. Right foot, doesn't work. The right side of the foot is like you can't move that if you try to wiggle your toes and all. But so there's things, but that's not the worst of it. It was just every now and then that leg will just go out where that's it. It's much more like 10 times worse than what you would know as a cramp, Charlie horse, whatever. And so during that process, I just began, I'm going to go through the workman's comp and all that. And I just one day said, that's it, because the city called. We're going to put you on the light duty, John, which I never wanted to do, and you got to go to the firehouse like an 8-hour day. I live in Corpus Christi. I said, tell the chief I'm retiring. No injury, no nothing. They didn't believe me because, they knew I was going to, but they thought they were going to get sued because it was a work injury. And you had guys faking injuries that sue. And they knew this was a real one. And so I retired, put in my papers for the retirement. And they waited about 8 months to send me my appreciation certificate, because they thought, if anybody, John's certainly going to sue, but I'm not like that, and I didn't. When I retired, the only way I could do it, because the house payment was about $900 and something a month, and I had it on my Wells Fargo account where you could always see how much you owed. And I owed at that time, it always showed up on the online, because that's the bank we use for the mortgage. And I owed like 38 grand on this house, principal. And you could take a certain lump sum of money out when you retire, which lowers your retirement. And I could take about 40 grand at that time out of a total combination of over 200,000 when they calculate what you had put in and then the city's matching funds. So figure I took like 40 grand out, which lowered my retirement check. But it paid off the mortgage. And so, technically, I paid off 90% of this house. And I never was like that, where people fight over those things. I was willing at a time, I was going to leave here and said, I don't care about, just like to get half of my, lump sum back if we sell this house. And so and it bugged me because in arguments people have with family and arguments people go through in life. When I had retired, because I used to be an alcoholic too, some alcoholics, their family remembers them that they never worked. They just hang around, were drunk all day. And those are like moms, taking care of the alcoholic dad type thing. And people, kids, family, wives, they get the impression that they don't see what I just explained. Because over time, I said I was not able to pay as many utility bills, house bills, all those types of things, because I paid that lump sum and got rid of that $1,000 monthly payment, which was mortgage. And so sometimes families fight over, but you don't pay bills or you don't. And I would say, well, don't ever forget, I have less retirement income because I eliminated that $1,000 a month house payment. To me, logic, I would try and say, just look at it that way. I said, we don't have $1,000 monthly payment, which was the highest payment. And the reason we don't have that monthly $1,000 payment every month is because I paid it cash. And I said, if it helps in people's thinking at times, just look at it that way, that every month Dad's paying that mortgage. Because technically I lowered my income by taking 40 grand and paying the house. I understand that. I hope you guys could have. Some people never understood that. They said, yes, but that doesn't count anymore because you're not paying that 1,000 every month. I said, well, if I didn't take all that 40 grand. And I think kind of logically, so to me that makes sense. And that's always been an issue with me too. Because in some of the family arguments people have, well, you don't pay rent and this. I said, well, I own the house. But it's never in situations where you're dealing with people and families. You never go down that. I saw it with my mother and my sister. It's a never-ending thing, and people do things out of intimidation. We have a problem here, and we're going to have to do things, and maybe a certain person is afraid. No, just leave everything the way it is because I don't want, things stolen from me. Or I said, this is intimidation that happens at times in families that deal with addiction. I said, there's much bigger things going on right now, You have to see that. There's going to be a lot of possible life change here. And you have to see that. My poor mom, I'm looking at a picture right here on my wall. Many years. You don't have to go through justifying. So the simplest thing is, you just settle affairs. So look, we're going to just sell this thing, and because I can't argue. That's how some of these things go. I said I can't continually justify how I should be able to have my prayer yard, and you work and you retire and you live. I said the retired person should be able to enjoy his home without having to justify why he wants to be able to be at his house that's paid off, which he paid off. And those things have always irked me. That little thing I explained, I said, look at it that way, that Dad's paying the $1,000 every month. Just look at it that way if it helps everybody. Because I had a lower income, took in cash, so paid almost all the principal on this house. But I've never been in that. I've never liked when people do that. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, if you bring problems to your own home, he that causes problems, he inherits the wind. And that famous movie about evolution, the Scopes trial out of Tennessee, they named it Inherit the Wind, that famous evolution movie, but it comes from that verse. And I always looked at families that had divorce situations, broken home, and I've always said, they sue each other, they get lawyers, and I remember that verse. You're making enemies, within your house, within your family. But in families where there's problems with addiction and all, oftentimes addicts, through intimidation. My mother put up with a lot of things for many years that I would see when I made my visits back. And a lot of times with my sister and the drug addiction affected her in a bad way. And she would it was almost like the parent will dread the person beginning a long berating, cursing, Who are you? Who do you think? On and on for hours and hours and hours, sometimes leading to violence. And sometimes the parent is so manipulated through that intimidation where the parent doesn't want to do anything. Okay? Because they know, oh, it's going to lead. And oftentimes my mother would not, I could see things like that happen. And so that part, just kind of following through, I wanted some of that to be shared. And this is their reasons why I need like spots where I had my morning. It's early and I pray. That's how my recovery is not AA based. It's prayer and it's ministry, but it's primarily prayer. And so I always need to have, and you shouldn't have to justify why. So I would prefer to keep the house I own. And it begins a process. Family things. People don't pay rent when they own houses. So, today I have friends just with this one injury on the leg. And I don't look in bad shape. Look, I walk a lot and I don't eat much. But I got friends with this and they're sitting around a lot and it's killing those friends. Like that one injury. Some people get this, I've known people that have overdosed on drugs, no work history, overdosed on drugs and got this injury. Never put in a penny to disability. And they get disability. They get income. It's a strange thing the way that system works. You can have a work history, put in hundreds of thousands. I paid into Social Security all the years I paid into my retirement. Cities work differently. States work differently. The city of Kingsville Fire Department, we used to complain because they took a pretty good chunk out every 2 weeks that went into your Texas retirement. Then they took the same amount out that went into Social Security. Corpus Christi firemen didn't have to do that. They simply had an opt-out provision back in those years. And the Corpus Christi retirement guys, they just paid into their city retirement. I don't even know if they were in TMRS, which is Texas Mutual Retirement, but they didn't have to pay Social Security. And we complained in the beginning, like, we want to opt out of that. But I paid a lot, almost equal to what I put into my Texas retirement. I put into, and I don't get disability. I don't get Social Security. It's just regular retirement, but it's low. And I see a lot of friends over the years on disability for that one, and particularly some that have overdosed and had a certain injury to the leg. Collecting no work history. I was a drug addict. I was committing crimes. I overdosed. I got this injury. Pay me. And they get paid. A lot of problems we have. Society. So this is another update. Just did it this morning. My watch wasn't showing. It's the next day. I'll put the date on this. And then I still got to work on that teaching video. Okay? Just good for everybody to... I wanted to explain that. I think I'm justified when I explain. Please understand that argument. People have not understood that. I've explained that a lot. 40 grand out. Paid, got rid of $1,000 a month bill. Said if it helps people, I've said this multiple times over the last 8 years. Said if it helps people look at it like that, look at it that way. Instead of me paying that $1,000 every month or $900 or whatever, we don't have to pay that anymore because I pay it. Just so happened I paid it with the cash lump sum. Okay? The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. God bless you all.